Now, on Emeritus Newsbrief, I'm Lynn Houston. The CDC announces a major spike in swine flu deaths, and President Obama plans a job summit at the White House next month. Just before leaving on his Asian trip, the president said that while everybody knows that a job recovery often lags behind economic recovery, he will bring together all sides to find ways to speed job creation.
And given the magnitude of the economic turmoil that we've experienced, employers are reluctant to hire. Small businesses and large firms are demanding more of their employees. They're increasing their hours and adding temporary workers. But these companies have not yet been willing to take the steps necessary to hire again. We all know that there are limits to what government can and should do, even during such difficult times. But we have an obligation to consider every additional responsible step that we can to encourage and accelerate job creation in this country. And that's why in December, we'll be holding a forum at the White House on jobs and economic growth. We'll gather CEOs and small business owners, economists and financial experts, as well as representatives from labor unions and nonprofit groups to talk about how we can work together to create jobs and get this economy moving again.
You can see more of the president's announcement on the Emeritus News channel right after this news brief. The CDC says deaths from the swine flu are more than double last week's estimate. That's because more test results from earlier deaths have now been established, and that H1N1 swine flu was the cause.
So for April through October 17th, we estimate that 22 million people have become ill from pandemic influenza. We estimate that 98,000 people have been hospitalized so far through October 17th. And the upper and lower estimates on hospitalizations are from 63,000 to 153,000. We estimate that 3,900 people have died so far in the first 6 months of the pandemic from this virus. And the estimates there are from 2,500 up through 6,100 people having died so far. We've been talking a lot about this pandemic being a younger person's disease, that it's disproportionately affecting children and young adults and relatively sparing the elderly, very different from seasonal flu. So I also want to give you some estimates for cases, hospitalizations, and deaths for different age groups. So in children under 18, we estimate 8 million children have been ill with influenza, 36,000 hospitalized, and 540 children have died from this pandemic influenza. In the first 6 months of the pandemic, for adults 18 to 64 years of age, we estimate 12 million cases, 53,000 hospitalizations, and 2,900 deaths. For people 65 and over, we estimate about 2 million cases, 9,000 hospitalizations, and about 440 deaths.
The CDC says more than 41 million doses of H1N1 swine flu vaccine have been produced as states continue vaccinating at-risk populations first. A study released by Pew Center on the States says Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Michigan, Nevada, New Jersey, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin will join California as the 10 most troubled states due to state budget gaps, rising joblessness, and foreclosures. The study says that the states will need more money for Medicaid and unemployment benefits. More on the Emeritus News National World page. The Government Accountability Office projects the Postal Service will have to make more cuts, including jobs. The GAO says the USPS is facing an unprecedented cash shortfall and did not have enough cash on hand to make its required $5.4 billion payment to the pre-fund postal retiree health benefits. Back in July, the GAO added USPS's financial condition to the list of high-risk areas needing immediate attention by Congress and the executive branch. More on the Emeritus News employment page. A new report from the Business Roundtable says the status quo on the current health insurance system is not sustainable for employers. That even major employers under the current system will see their health insurance premiums rise 166% by the year 2019. The Business Roundtable report says reform proposals now in Congress offer, quote, real promise and cost reduction. More on the Emeritus News insurance page. And a new report for the Carnegie Endowment says additional offshore oil drilling costs too much, produces too little, and presents more dangers for the environment. More on that story on the Emeritus News National World page. The latest on the biggest issues in public policy at emeritusnews.com. And live 24 hours, 7 days a week on the Emeritus News channel at livestream.com. That's an Emeritus News Brief. I'm Lynn Houston.